Hi, in this tutorial we are going to configure Qonda for admin access. So after the initial install, there will be no authorization or authentication required. This is obviously so you can set it up first. So on the initial screen, we'll be able to click admin access and it won't prompt us for a login. So what we need to do next is go to the settings tab, and we need to update the app ID and the sharing URL for our application, which means we need to register an application in ArcGIS Enterprise or ArcGIS Online. So to do this, we go to ArcGIS Online, we click New Item, we go to Application, we click Leave it on Web Mapping. The URL is the URL of the application, so in our case it is vault.qonda.app. We can click Next, and so this is the authentication for administration access. So we can call this Qonda admin access, and press save. So once the application is saved, we just need to go to settings and scroll down to credentials and click register application. So we want to register the application using the URL. So if we click on redirect URLs, we can put in our URL and click register. So what we have now is the client ID. So we want to copy that to the clipboard, go back to Qonda Vault, and we want to edit the app ID. So save the new app ID there, press save, just double check it's the right one. Okay, now the sharing URL, this will be your sharing URL for your organization. So if this is a portal, it will be something like your application, sorry, your domain /portal/sharing. So you can use that, but in this case we're using ArcGIS Online, so it's just our organization name .maps.arcgis.com/sharing. So we'll just check that that's right. Okay, so we now have the authentication set up. We now need to restart the application. Okay, so I've restarted the application. If we go back to our start screen, we'll get the welcome screen. If we click on admin access, we should now get a redirect to our application, which is Qonda admin access, and we can log in with our credentials. So this simply gives us access to get into the administration console. So this is where we will configure the actual feature services that we will use in a minute. So stay tuned for the next tutorial. Hi, in this tutorial we are going to link a server from an ArcGIS Enterprise to Qonda Vault. So in the previous tutorial we set up authentication for administration access. So we're logged into the admin console here. Now to link a server, we need to go to the Servers tab and click Add New. So you'll notice here that we need to provide another app ID. So this is similar to the previous tutorial, but this is for the app access. So we're going to link an ArcGIS server from ArcGIS Enterprise. So we go to our content, we click New Item, Application. Now for the application type, you want to pick Other and click Next. We'll give this a title of Qonda Vault Link Server Demo, because we're linking a server to our Qonda Vault. We click Next, and you'll notice this time that the application has already been registered with this redirect URL at the bottom. So we need this in order for the application to be able to talk to Qonda Vault. So we do want to go to Update and just add our application URL again. So we click Add. So we now have two URLs. We've got the Qonda Vault URL and then also this special OAuth URL over here. So we click Update. We want to copy the app ID. So if we go back to Qonda Vault, we can paste in our app ID. We will call this BSO. Let's just call it Enterprise. Okay, so the base URL is the the URL for the server. So in this case, this is our ArcGIS server. So we just want to copy the URL for the server. So that's https bso.qonda.app/server. Don't worry about the owning system URL. You'll notice that it populated automatically when I clicked off the server. So this will get the owning system for that server, and we can press save. So once we have the server set up, you'll notice over here on the right it says it's not authorized. So there is a secondary step that we need to do. So from here we need to select the record that we want to authorize, and we click Authorize. Now this will pop up a second window which will ask us to sign in to that application. So we're signing in as our site admin. You don't have to sign in as your administrator. You just need to sign in with an account that will have access to the services that you want to access. So we click Allow, and what happens next is that there is an OAuth approval code. We can just copy that to the clipboard. We can close that window, and then we just paste that code into this notification window. Now we press OK, and we'll see that our server has now changed to be authorized. So once that server is authorized, we can then go on to our next step, which is to add in a source. So we'll do that in another tutorial, because there is another step here where we need to set up where we're going to store our attachments. So in this tutorial we set up or linked an ArcGIS server from ArcGIS Enterprise using a different app ID. Hi, in this tutorial we are going to configure a storage location, or what we call a vault in Qonda Vault. So in the previous tutorial we set up a link to one of our ArcGIS servers. So we've done that. So the next step is to go to the Vaults tab, and we want to add in a new vault. So we click Add New, and we can give this a name. So let's just call it File System Demo. Okay, so we can put in the name, and then we can pick our type. So there's a couple of supported types that we can pick from. So one is file system. This will give you an example JSON string that we need to configure. So by default, it just points to ctemp. So we could change that to dtemp if we wanted to. Or we can change it to a different folder. So in this case, this is actually running on a Linux box. So we just need to point it to our mount point, which is mount and then vault. And we press save. So that record is there now. So you can see, similar to the server, it's not validated. So to validate, we just click on it and click validate, and that will actually check that the system has the correct privileges to talk to that particular vault. So as I mentioned earlier, there are other types that Qonda Vault supports. So we can click Cloud S3, and this will give us an example S3 configuration. So basically it uses the REST endpoint for your S3. So you need to have the S3 URL. You need to have your access key, your secret key, the region, and then the bucket name. So it will work with any S3 compatible storage. So that means it will work with Linode and B2 or Backblaze. They also have S3 compatible storage. It will work with Open Media Vault, and then also if you use Google storage, so not Google Drive, but the actual Google Object Store, they have the ability to run as S3 as well. So you can use that to connect to Google. The other option is Azure Blob. So this is very similar. We just need to configure our storage account, our access key, and the blob container name. So we'll cover those off in another tutorial, but those are the other options that are available to store your attachments. Hi, in this tutorial we're going to add a source layer to Qonda Vault. So a source layer is a feature service layer that has attachments enabled. So in the previous tutorials we set up our admin authentication. We also set up a linked server, and we set up a vault or a storage location for our sources. So from here we want to add a new source. So from the admin interface, click on the sources tab and click add new. We need to pick our server, which is our link server, and then we need to pick our type. So the type is basically the mode that Qonda Vault will treat the layer attachments in. So starting from the bottom, delete will download attachments and delete from the source. So this means it will offload all the attachments from the layer and keep them locally, but it will delete them from the source. So that means your layer will no longer have those attachments. Backup, we'll simply download the attachments and leave the attachments in the source layer as they are. Placeholder will download all of the attachments and replace the attachments on the source layer with a placeholder, which is just a little gray image. This is useful if you want to reduce storage on or for the attachments on that layer, but you may want to restore them in the future. Placeholder is a lot smaller than the next option, which is shrink. So shrink is probably the most common use case. This will download attachments and replace image attachments with a smaller thumbnail. The size of the thumbnail can actually be controlled in the settings. So we'll pick shrink. We then need to choose where we want to store this. So we pick our vault, which is file system demo, and then we need to pick our service. So services, we can pick our service. It will list all services, but the layers will be filtered on whether they have attachments or not. So for example, if we choose sample world cities, there are no layers with attachments, so no layers will display in the layer drop down. So we're going to pick survey 12, and we're going to pick layer 0. Now some of the other options we can set, we can process videos and other attachments. So videos are obviously any videos from a phone that have been attached. Other relates to PDFs and Word documents and other documents other attachments which are not videos and are not images. So turning these off means that they will remain unaltered on the source layer, whereas if you have process video on, then obviously videos will be downloaded. In this particular case, they won't be replaced with a thumbnail, they'll just be replaced with a placeholder. And for other, same thing, if you have, for example, a PDF, it will be replaced with just a little image showing that it's a file document of some kind. In terms of authentication, there are two modes or two levels of authentication and authorization. So the first one is portal authenticate. This means that when somebody tries to access this Qonda Vault layer, it will prompt them to log into the portal that this source layer is associated with. They don't have to have access, they just need to have an account or a username, a named user on that portal. If we enable the second option, layer authorize, this will check that the user has access to the source layer. So for example, if you had a team of field workers collecting data, but you had another group that didn't have access to the source data, you may want to turn that off. Then any named user can access that, but they don't necessarily have to have access to the original source layer. Turning both of these off will mean that the Qonda Vault viewer won't require any authentication or authorization. This is obviously fine if you're on premise, but if you're in the cloud or internet facing, you want to have at least portal authenticate turned on. We'll leave both of those on for now. And lastly, every source layer that you configure is given a short code, This is just a random 8-character string, which we'll talk about later. So if we press save, you'll now see that we have that configured. Obviously we haven't updated it yet. We'll do that now. So if we want to manually run this, we can just click on it and press sync, and that will add it to the queue. So we get a confirmation, we just say yes, and it will be added to the queue. Now that's a manual sync. We can of course also go to the settings, and there is an update time over here which is set to 5 AM. So that means every 5 AM all of our attachment sources will be updated. And we can also set the number of update threads. So when you have multiple sources, you can simultaneously update a number of them if you want to. So if your machine has 4 CPUs, you could set the update threads to 4, and it will process 4 attachment sources at the same time. But obviously that will have an impact on the performance of that machine, so which is fine if it's running overnight. Okay, so that is busy updating in the background. We'll just need to wait for that to finish, and then we can come back and talk about some of these other things. Okay, so that source has been synchronized. So we can see over here that the last update was 12:39, and it took 11 minutes. We can also see that, let's get rid of some of these columns. We can see that we have 464 attachments. The full size of the attachments is 731 megabytes. And our thumbnail database is 6 megabytes. So that is a big saving. So basically we've gone from 700 odd megabytes of attachments, and what we have now on the ArcGIS layer is 6 megabytes. So that's a big saving. Okay, so from here we can open the Vault. So the Vault is basically the web interface for accessing or viewing the attachments. So we can click on that, open Vault. Because we set it up with authentication and authorization, we will get prompted for access. So we click allow, and then we can see the attachments. So these attachments here are coming from the file system, or the Vault where we stored the attachments. Okay, so once we are in the viewer, we are looking at the attachments in the Vault. So these attachments are no longer coming from ArcGIS Enterprise or ArcGIS Online. The viewer exists outside of the admin interface, so you don't need to be an administrator to view the attachments. So some of the functionality in the viewer, we can scroll through all of these attachments, and it will lazy load more attachments when it gets to the end, and we can just keep scrolling, adding more attachments as we go. We can sort the attachments by the date the photo was taken. So if we want to see the latest or the oldest, we can do that. We can use the zoom tool over here to zoom in and see the full size image. So if we do that on this one, we can zoom in and see the full size image, and zoom in if we want to see more detail. We can also open up the map view. So the map view will default to the extent of all of the images. we can click on the individual images and it will show us a pop-up of that particular image, or if we change the mode to locate mode, we can click on the thumbnail and that will zoom us to that particular image. If we want to see a different one, we can click on that and it will take us to that particular image. We can also add tags to the images. So if we activate the tag tool and click on an image, we can enter some tags in. So if we type in exit and 232, we can save those tags against that particular image. Searching or sorting by tags is coming in a future release, but for now you can add new tags to the image. So once you have some tags, they will show up in the drop down list, so we can then go and just pick those existing tags and apply them to other images.